I said, absolutely not. We have full-time jobs. We have
Right.
other things to do. He was like, cool, no problem. You have to move out of the super suite because it's the only 2-bedroom apartment. I need it for the super. Like, are you kidding me? We just painted. We just put up light fixtures. We just moved in. Moving sucks. Who
Yeah.
wants to freaking move?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, twist my arm. I guess we'll do it.
Because there's so many people out there that want they love the benefits
Totally.
of being a self-employed person. Control of time, flexibility,
Sure.
call it control of income. But at the same time, in the beginning, when you're growing a business, you don't have those things.
I know to say, where are we actually driving this bus?
Right.
We're just driving. Love the ride, but where are we
Yeah.
headed? What's the ultimate destination? And even when we set that goal, it was a number goal. It was, hey, we have 1,000 units. Let's try to get to 1,500. And that took us 5 years to set that goal. And it was a verbal goal, and it was as extensive as I just told you.
Marla, welcome to Cracking the Success Vault with Spectre Financial.
Thank you.
I am super excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
After our conversation at the office last time, obviously I thought the podcast would be great for us, be able to get to know you a little bit better as well with the businesses and stuff that you run. I know you've got one awesome project on the go right now that we're gonna touch on. But we're all here just to talk about success, lessons that entrepreneurs could learn.
All my projects are awesome.
All
just
of
so
your
you know.
yeah, they are.
But carry on.
There's lots.
Okay.
Your new one is exciting though.
Thank you. Yes, we're excited about it.
It was very unique to be on the launch of it. So we'll get into that in a second. But I want to start off with, obviously you're a serial entrepreneur. I think it's 5 or 6 different businesses, all vertically integrated.
Yes.
And it was very unique to hear your story about how they all kind of came together.
Sure.
So what I want to do is start off very similar to in our office there, in my office, as where did you grow up?
Yeah.
How did you get started in the business? I thought your story was super, super unique. And then how did you guys go from 1 to 5?
Absolutely. My pleasure. So born and raised here in Windsor-Essex County. My parents are from here in Windsor. My husband and business partner, Dale's from the East Coast, but he's been in Windsor for 20 plus years, more than 20 years now. Growing up, I went to the University of Windsor, political science grad, and kind of just oopsed my way into entrepreneurship. No intention to be a business owner, no contemplation at all of running my own show in any way, shape, or form. I wanted to get into professional fundraising. Okay. So I did an internship at the University of Michigan when I went to the U of W and did that in philanthropy and was really looking at, institutions of higher learning and or hospital settings to get into professional fundraising. Oopsed my way into entrepreneurship through just an opportunity. It was just something that my husband came across. He said, hey, this organization is looking for someone to be an on-site superintendent in an apartment building. We could live there, we'd get free rent, save to buy a house. To be honest with you, I'm no stranger to side hustles. Growing up, my mom did lots of sweatshirt sales and different home parties and stuff like that, and helped my brother with paper routes and all the things. Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. Who needs, why don't we have 2 jobs? Why have 1 job?
Right.
So my husband and I were both working full time. We moved into this apartment building in, let's just say, Windsor's not best neighborhood. We'll just kind of leave it at that. My parents were super, super sus about why we were moving from the suburbs to questionable neighborhood at best. Right. But we pushed through that and we moved into this apartment building. We started managing, as superintendents, collecting rent, dealing with tenant issues, leasing out apartments, stuff like that. And literally within 3 weeks of doing that, the property owner contacted me and said, hey, I found your number on Kijiji. I can see you have our apartment listed for rent. Thank you so much. We are not happy with the property management firm we've hired for whom you work for. We're going to get rid of them. Will you just manage the whole property? I said, absolutely not. We have full-time jobs. We have other things to do. He was like, cool, no problem. You have to move out of the super suite because it's the only 2-bedroom apartment. I need it for the super. Like, are you kidding me? We just painted. We just put up light fixtures. We just moved in. Moving sucks. Who wants to freaking move?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, twist my arm. I guess we'll do it. And that's how we fell into it. We started managing the property as the primary property managers in addition to our full-time work. And from there, it really just evolved and snowballed. Hey, I have an investor who has a property. Hey, I bought another building. Hey, so and so has a house. My sister this, so and so that. And it just started to grow and snowball. And within about a year, we said, wow, like maybe we should start a company. Maybe we should do this thing. And that's how Marda Management Inc. was born. That's our property management company, which is primarily a third-party provider. So we manage for investors who mostly live outside of the Windsor area, as well as some property we own ourselves.
Okay.
So that's our core business. That's how that was born. We worked in that business for 10 plus years, day and night, 6 and 7 days a week, all day, every day. Wore all the hats, did all the jobs, had a wonderful, robust team working with us, but we were doing all the things nonetheless, one way or another.
Yeah.
So, you know, my husband was showing apartments. I was collecting rent and everything in between. 2020 hit, of course, we all know what was going on there. During that time of the pandemic, we decided to start managing HOAs or condos. But in Ontario, condos are regulated. So you ultimately need to be in a position where you have a license, which takes 2 years to acquire in Ontario to manage condos. I did not have my license. So we connected with someone here in Windsor who was prepared to oversee and help us while I got my license. And we ended up the following year acquiring the business from him so that he could enter into retirement.
Okay.
So that's how we integrated our second business, which we did keep separate due to the licensing requirements.
Yep.
So that business is Huron Shores Property Management. We've grown that business over the last 4 years from 350 units to 2,800 doors, largest in Essex County. And honestly, I only have a wonderful team to thank for that. Chantal Meadows is our leader of that business there. She's done a fabulous job at developing that team. And we're just on a trajectory to continue to grow there. So properties are definitely, property management of some way, shape, or form is definitely the foundation for sure. And then we've had a few spinoffs that have just made sense. We started a bookkeeping company with our co-founder and the CEO of that company, Sharice Guyton. She does a wonderful job running that organization. They do dozens of sets of books a month across many industries all over Canada and even I think a couple in the US. So that's a really wonderful growing business that just makes sense. And we're able to service our other businesses internally, serve some of our clients. So that's been strategic.
Yep.
We also, in 2022 and 2023, we started a business that basically is a building supplies company. So we just determined that by buying in bulk and selling at shelf prices, we were really able to mitigate how much drive time our maintenance technicians were spending going to and from Home Depot, which in Windsor, you know, are not necessarily central to anything.
On the outskirts of town.
Well, certainly outskirts of all of the rentals, that's for sure. So we rented a warehouse that is within 10 minutes of 90% of our rentals, which ultimately just gave us an opportunity to be able to create speed when it came to getting building materials and products. So that's been a great business. That's called the Loading Dock Supply Company. It only services our internal property management clients right now for both companies. But it's been pretty beneficial. And we also have a landscaping, lawn care, and snow removal business called A&G Maintenance with our business partner, Marcus Angelieri. So he runs that business. And essentially, it's just a vertical integration strategy that allows us to serve our end users. So it's been quite a ride. We've really been able to diversify some of what we're doing while kind of sticking to the main theme of real estate and finding a way for those alternative businesses to support the core foundation of Marda Management, which has been really wonderful. And then about a couple years ago, my husband and I stepped out of the day-to-day operations of those businesses. We realized there's more out there. There's more to this. And ultimately started to recognize that if we stepped out of the day-to-day, we could rely on a wonderful team. Judy Cake runs Marda Management for us. She's an awesome leader and is really leaning into her role there in being able to continue to keep the business, you know, going in the trajectory we want it to while we're not necessarily there on the day-to-day.
Yeah. And it's interesting to sort of hear how it grew from people who didn't really want to be the entrepreneur. You weren't like, let's just grow some businesses.
Right.
You know, it was like, well, you know, we still want to keep the free rent and we just painted the room and we don't want to leave, to, you know what, this thing is actually kind of taken off, and like we're
There's something
actually
here.
there's something here,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people don't maybe understand or don't see,
Yeah.
because there's so many people out there that want they love the benefits
Totally.
of being a self-employed person, control of time, flexibility,
Sure.
call it control of income. But at the same time, in the beginning, when you're growing a business, you don't have those things. You know, you are
Any of those
24/7
things.
all the time.
That's right.
Your bank account controls your time, because you have to keep the business going
One way or another.
one way or another. Absolutely.
And in fairness, being self-employed and owning a business also aren't the same,
Correct.
right? If you want to be a technician,
Yep.
then absolutely you can create a job for yourself, work for yourself, not have a boss,
Yeah.
have some flexibility like you just mentioned, or you can own a business, which allows you to ultimately span your horizons,
Yeah.
create, your own vision, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think hearing your story, it's very, call it slight edge principle. Every day you guys showed up, you did the work, little incremental wins, little learning here and there. And so you guys had Marda Management for quite some time
Yeah.
before you got the next one,
Yes.
which was Huron Shores.
Yes.
And then a shorter window before the next one, and an even shorter window before the next one. And now you guys are on this serious vertical trajectory to continue to grow.
There is no question that the real kind of tipping point there was about awareness.
Right.
Awareness is 50% of everything. So ultimately, when we realized there's more out there, I always thought, and by the way, I loved running Marda day in and day out. I was passionate about it. I was doing it with my life partner. How lucky am I? I was never feeling stuck or feeling like I didn't have a choice or feeling like it sucked. I loved it. So it was really about creating awareness around the fact that there's a different way to do this. There are different rules to a different game here that can get you to the same result or a much better result with a whole different level of ease that we didn't know or understand until that tipping point. So I really place a lot of emphasis on that. Yeah. It's always about awareness.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know that you guys had hired a coach.
Yeah.
I currently forget his name right now.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us a little bit about that story, because I know that, and I have heard from other business owners or other self-employed people, as we would say, that they want to buy their time back. They want to have all these things, and hiring somebody to do the day-to-day so that they can step away, they look at it from a sense of, well, I'm now losing money because I'm paying that person something that they could be doing. And so I know that your story basically was, we're going to take this 30 days, we're going to step away and see what happens. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we've had a few coaches over the years. The first coach we brought in ultimately said to us, why are you doing all of these menial tasks, respectfully? Why are you literally wearing all of the hats? And of course, as almost every entrepreneur responds to questions like that, because that's how it's always been done. Right. Of course. How else would you do it? And so, it took a long time for us to really have that turning point or shift to, you know what? I actually think that there's something here. I actually think that it doesn't really need to be done this way. And so in 2023, we stepped out of the business for 30 days. And if I'm honest, I think it was in one way the coach's opportunity to say, hey, 30 days, it's not that bad. It's not that much time. And that was convincing for me. I was like, yeah, 30, like how much can go wrong really? It's probably long enough to expose the gaps, long enough to recognize where we could delegate or cross-train or hire, but not so long that we couldn't really put out any fires that arose. And it took discipline, and it wasn't easy, but it was a path I could understand, right? And a lot of what happens for entrepreneurs is it's about distance. If I just said tomorrow, I'm just going to leave my business for the next 10 years, it's too much distance. I can't grapple with that. I can't appropriately, really get through that in my own mind. So it's immediately written off as that's not going to work. Yeah. But a month was not so much distance. I could see the pathway. So we said, okay, let's try it. We did that. Of course, we had no idea what to do with our time because all of a sudden we were walking our kid to school and, I was braiding her hair in the morning and going to the gym when I wanted to, a life I wasn't that familiar with. And by the end of that month, I simply said, I'm not going back to what I used to do.
Right.
And I never have.
Yeah.
So that was a choice at that moment to say, okay, there's hard work ahead because of course we exposed a whole bunch of nonsense during that month. of gaps, training opportunities, cross-training needs, delegation requirements, hiring necessities, etc. So we had a lot of work to do, but we spent the majority of the rest of 2023 putting those things in place. And now, I probably spend a couple hours a week on that business, maybe. And we still do strategy, of course. We're still here,
Yeah, you've taken on a different role. It's no longer day to day. It's no longer, boots on the ground, putting out the fires yourself. Now it's like, okay, where do we want to take this? What are the next goals? How can we help other people do the same thing that we've been able to do? And before we get into the newer project, what do you think, growing up like for you guys, you and Dale, helped sort of provide some of that perseverance or some of those things? Like, not many people would, take on a role with a full-time job, and then just, 3 weeks later be told, well, either do it or you're out. Would just be like, okay, I guess I'll do it. A lot of people would be like, well, like, I don't have time for it. You guys just seem to figure it out. So how did you guys work within your marriage, within your family, within those things when you're just all into it with both full-time jobs and this new thing that's taken off?
Here's the thing. When you're really a hill climber, like at your core, it's just who you are.
Yeah.
So we're perseverance experts, Dale and I both. And so when you put that together and you both are just hill climbers by nature, it's kind of hard to hold you back.
Yeah.
Certainly I would say his parents and mine absolutely instilled a lot of work ethic into us. My dad worked at Ford Motor Company for 32 years. He said yes to every single overtime or early shift he ever got offered. And a lot of that is what helped provide for our family. But it instilled in me and my brother that ultimately that hard work rendered results.
Right.
And that's the foundation of everything I've built. Don't think for even a moment that it wasn't hard, and that we didn't have to dig the well on that foundation for a long time. But I think that the lack of awareness that there was a different path, or that we could do things a little bit differently, or that we could choose to close the distance between some of the goals that seemed outlandish at the time, but were a lot more in reach than we realized, was not that far gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. So tell me a little bit about then some of the, if you can think of some right now, maybe some of the mistakes that you guys made early on that led to more successes later on once you've learned from them. Are there any that come to mind of like, man, we really stepped on that landmine and, but at the same time, I'm glad we did because we learned these things?
So many mistakes. Yeah. So many, yes. Of course, we all have so many. To me, the difference is really just how well do you recognize it and how well do you parlay it into lessons, right? In our household, we call those things tuition. We've had to pay the piper on it, but we've learned and we better take something out of it.
Yeah.
So, when you bring that up, I'll just throw a couple of examples out there. Early days, probably 2013, so a few years into our business, we were managing a pretty good sized property, I think 30, 35 units, which was a good sized property for us, or a good sized contract at the time. Certainly felt some imposter syndrome, certainly felt a bit ill-equipped, but we were doing a decent job. I mean, the building was well run, we had good standards. We stuck to our standards. Overall, pretty satisfied with the management on the property. The owners came to the city and because many of our owners are from out of town.
Yeah.
They contacted us and said, "Hey, we want to stop by and just say hi to your office." And I was like, "This is not going to be good.
Weird.
There's no way they're stopping by to say hey." And unfortunately, I felt so unsure about my own ability to stand in our product, in our service, and in our confidence level as to why we even had a contract of that size, given where we were in our industry evolution and in our business evolution. I was like, you can't just contact me and say, "Hey, I'm coming in an hour." Like, I have meetings.
Stuff to do.
I was nice about it, but I basically was like, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm backed up today," which was complete and utter nonsense. Every small business owner makes time for what they want to make time for. And by the way, so does every big business owner. That doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they were like, okay, no worries. Like, we get it. Absolutely. We didn't make an appointment. I totally understand. Next time, no problem. They come to our office anyway, which, by the way, at the time was in our house. So I can see them ringing my doorbell. And I'm saying to this girl that worked with us, like, this is awful. They came anyway. I told them we weren't available today. Like, they're coming. They're not happy. There's some dissatisfaction here for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember running upstairs and being like, just tell them I'm not free. And so she entertained them at the door in our foyer and was like, she's not free, as she said. I'm so sorry. And they were lovely and they were kind and they were dropping off a key, and that was fine. And I totally could have, saved face and done what I had to do at the door and,
Yeah.
Saw them for a few minutes. And that's probably all they really needed, was a little bit of a face-to-face moment to just chat. But I was so scared as a small business owner that they were going to pull the contract, or they weren't happy with the way we were doing it, or that we were ill-equipped in some way because we were small or we only had a few staff, that I decided to run from the problem.
Yeah.
Now, in hindsight, we did lose that contract, although it was maybe a year or two later. It was a good while later. But there's no question that I unequivocally point to my somehow desire, need, outcome of choosing not to be vulnerable in that moment and just be like, hey, tell me what the problems are.
Right.
I'd rather know. But the good thing is I turned that into a deep-seated need for feedback culture.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of our businesses are predicated in such a way that whether it's from our employees, our vendors, our staff, our customer base, we want the feedback. I want to know. It is literally our best opportunity for improvement. So while my oversight in the early days of choosing to not really want to know what they had to say, and probably that didn't serve me very well in that contract, I think has served me very well in the 10 or 12 years since.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because my business partner, Jason, he loves it when there is a client with an issue, because every issue is a place to get better. It's a chance to service better. It's a chance to make them understand what their plan is, or why what's going on is going on.
Yeah.
And it's just one more reason to touch base with your clients,
Totally.
Imagine, and it's funny because we always talk at the office. Imagine in 2008, 2009, when markets are crashing, that advisors actually reached out to clients and said, "Hey guys, listen, don't run from the problem. There is a problem, but don't worry, we're going to weather this. Whatever."
Totally.
Whereas a lot of them just run and hid. And clients probably took out money when they shouldn't have, even though they had 10 or 15 years to retirement.
Sure.
They lost it. They withdrew everything at the bottom
Out of fear.
Yep. Because they had nobody to coach them.
Lack of guidance. Yep.
Lack of guidance. And then they missed, 18 months of just pure uptick in the market, and they had 50%, and they're like, man, I really wish I had stayed.
That's right.
If they had just had a coach, if they had just had a mentor.
You don't know what you don't know.
But you don't know what you don't know.
It's awareness.
Right?
Totally.
And there are so many people out there like that will run from those client challenges, especially when it's for business, whether it's a business contract or your biggest client or whatever. That's a big lesson. Obviously you've learned it. I've learned it. That's one big one for sure.
And here's the thing, right? I think what it really comes down to is that in almost every application, when you think about it, as a small business owner, no one wants to hear you're doing a not great job.
Yeah.
You're misstepping here, or you're not being thorough there, or you made a mistake over here. Who wants to freaking hear that?
Yeah.
I do. But there was a long time that I didn't, or that I didn't realize that I wanted to know. Right now, I'm like, if you don't tell me, I'm not going to freaking know. Right.
Yeah.
So that's been really substantial. And I would just say to every business owner out there, small, medium, large, or otherwise, ask for the feedback. That will be key for you in your business.
Yeah.
Totally.
Super important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. I'm really excited about this too, because the business launch was phenomenal. Listening to you guys talk, again, listening to your story a second time with some added things as well. Growth Arena.
Yes.
What is it? Why did you start it? What does it mean for people in your circle and for other business owners?
Sure. So when we stepped out of the day-to-day operations of the 5 base businesses that we had that are fortunately income-producing assets for us now, they're functioning. They have wonderful leaders that we, are able to know, like, and trust. But we ultimately had to make a decision about what are we going to spend our time doing? I'm not even 40, so I want to continue climbing that hill. And what we really got down to was if we can help other business owners, if we can ultimately show, demonstrate, or create awareness for entrepreneurs of things that I didn't know, and they certainly don't know that they don't know, show them our shortcuts, enlighten them to the problems and mistakes we made so that they can learn from the errors we already have under our belt. That is true passion. That is ultimately where our real spark lies, in feeling really good about what we're doing every single day. So from that is how we created the Growth Arena, which is a business coaching consulting firm that
Okay.
allows us to help other businesses and entrepreneurs in the small to medium sized business space, all over the place throughout Canada and the US. We're not just local here to Windsor-Essex, although we do a lot of our work here since we live here,
Yep.
in being able to really bring to their business what they aren't aware it even needs.
Right. And so with that, what do you see as common mistakes, for lack of a better word,
Sure.
common challenges that some of these small and medium-sized businesses are facing right now?
Well, first and foremost, I will say that it is not industry specific. Almost every small to medium sized business that we work with, whether they have 3 people or 33 people or 300 people, they ultimately have almost the same problems, which is so fascinating. We all think that businesses that seem put together or are of a certain size must be doing these certain base things. They're not.
Yeah.
They're running into the same struggles that businesses of 10 people are running into. So first and foremost, I will say everybody's problems are the same. What those problems consist of obviously varies, but ultimately has a common thread no matter which way you turn. So first and foremost, I will say process and policies are just not something that anyone focuses on.
Yeah.
No business owner thinks that they have enough time or enough money for anything, let alone to sit there
Standard
and create
operating procedures.
SOPs. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brutal. However, you get to a certain point where it's not really a family environment anymore. You're not really 3 or 4 people sitting around a table sharing lunch 5 days, 6 days a week.
Right.
At a certain point, it no longer feels like that, and it no longer can if you want it to grow to the next level. So you need those SOPs. You need those policies. It can be anything from a dress code, right? I have so many organizations that I've gone to work and they don't have a dress code. They have 60 staff. They have no dress code. They just let people wear whatever they think is best.
Mm.
And sometimes that works out.
And sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I created a dress code for my core organization when we probably had, 5 or 6 staff, but it was born out of a problem. It was because I had someone who was coming to our office, which was in my house, wearing slippers and pajama pants or yoga pants every single day. That didn't work for me, but only because of that problem did I seek solution. If that problem was not as large or as clear or in your face,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have found a way to prioritize that. But it was a simple thing that created structure that also told new team members, we're a serious company. We do have our act together. We do have procedures. We do have contracts.
Right.
We do have commitments and obligations. This isn't just like however you think it should go, it'll go.
Yeah.
Which is what often happens when you're an organization that is very, very new or of only a few people. You often just rely on, hey, I have a competent and capable team and whatever they think is good enough.
Right.
And that works for a while, but it doesn't work forever. And you've probably heard the saying, the people who have got you here won't necessarily get you there.
Correct.
And ultimately, that is true for every single facet of business.
Yeah.
The lack of policies that you had then is probably not good enough now. And even the ones you might have had then might need revamping now based on where you're at in the marketplace, where you're at in terms of size, where you're at in terms of your industry. All of those factors play into what is or isn't going to fly.
Yeah.
So that's very common. The other thing that we see across the board is people don't focus on company culture. They don't take time to consider, how do my team members actually feel about being here or being part of what we're doing? And usually that's because when your company's really small, a culture is kind of born out of its own. So when you have 5 people and you pay for lunch every day, the culture kind of morphs itself.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get beyond that tipping point where you lose that feel, nobody really takes the time, energy, care, or investment to decide, what do I actually want this culture to look like at scale?
Right.
If small businesses out there, as they were starting to climb, really took pause and said, what do I want this company to look like at scale? They'd be acting a whole lot differently than they are right now.
Right. And that even, I've heard that from many business owners, because it even goes into the people that you hire.
Sure.
Right? Because yes, somebody can be fantastic at their job and they can be the smartest person on the planet. But if they're the wrong person for your company culture, they will kill your company.
No question.
Right? It will drive good salespeople away. It will
Unequivocally.
make customer service go down. And so I've heard the term from a lot of business owners is hire for culture, because you can teach skills, you can teach sales, you can teach management, time management, stuff like that.
Yep.
But someone with culture and attitude, it's not something you can really teach.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that it really parlays into the concept that we need to understand when we're hiring what traits we're really even seeking. Not just background, not just have they worked in my industry, not just do they have the right education. And those are important components, sure. But if they don't have the right dominant traits as a person that can then be parlayed into being the right person in the right seat, I don't know how much it really matters, because your chance even at knocking on the door of having the right alignment in culture is pretty low.
Yeah.
It's pretty low. So I think we really need, when we're out there hiring, to consider what traits do we really need in this role, right? You sit across from somebody for 20 minutes, you chat with them in an interview, you check their resume, you know they're not a sandwich artist, and so you hire them. Like, that is not likely a recipe that's going to work out.
Right. And so have you seen business owners or have specific processes yourself in terms of hiring for the culture that you're looking for?
I think that there's a couple different facets at play there. So in one element, I think that people don't even bother asking culture-based questions when they're interviewing.
Right.
So let's start there. They're asking about their experience. They're asking about their education. They're asking about whether they've worked in the industry, and, circumstantial questions, but they're not actually asking anything that helps the person doing the interview understand what kind of cultural fit they are.
Right.
So let's start there. I think in addition to that, though, we really need to recognize when we're interviewing someone and we're trying to hire, nobody has trained a small business owner on how to interview or hire for the most part. And so we need to take seriously and use the guidance that's available, use the tools that are available to you. With so much spinning when it comes to AI and new technology, there's a lot out there that can help you to derive the information you're looking for. Sometimes we ask the right questions, but we don't know what answer we're looking for.
Yeah.
So what does it matter? You have to really have a more in-depth understanding in order to derive what you're looking for, to even have a shot at knowing if the person's going to be a fit.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because there are some, even in your own growth in business, you and Dale weren't the people early on that were like, we're getting into business for ourselves. This is our goal. This is where we're going to take it. Those things just kind of evolved over time. Did you find that at a certain point in time that you and Dale started to say, you know what, let's actually put a business plan together. Let's actually talk about where we wanted to go. Did you find that, or was it just like, we're just going to keep acquiring doors because people keep referring us stuff? Like, is that just kind of what you guys did?
So we spent 5 years grinding it out before we ever set our first goal.
Yeah.
Okay. And it just happened. It just kept rolling in, and we were very blessed and very grateful. And, we're wildly indebted to our clients for that. But at the end of the day, we never took a time out to say, where are we actually driving this bus?
Right.
We're just driving. Love the ride, but where are we headed? What's the ultimate destination? And even when we set that goal, it was a number goal. It was, hey, we have 1,000 units. Let's try to get to 1,500. And that took us 5 years to set that goal. And it was a verbal goal, and it was as extensive as I just told you.
Yeah.
It probably took us 5 more years after that. And not really until we brought a coach into our business to help elevate the awareness that we even recognized that setting goals every single quarter was critical.
Yeah.
That taking the time to understand what bottlenecks actually exist in this company and what do we have to do to put every resource we have, every ounce of energy we have behind that bottleneck to actually knock that domino over,
Right.
so we can move to the next one. So that probably took us 10 years before we really got to a point where we were methodically and intentionally setting those goals on a consistent basis.
Right. And it's interesting because I find that a lot in my work that I do, financial services. So many people, they just feel like, 60, 65 is going to be the retirement. They don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know, they haven't put thought into how much money do I need? Where is it going to come from? And I always use the analogy, it's like getting in a car in Windsor and saying, I'm going to drive to Florida.
Totally.
But without today's GPS and without a map,
Where
how
are you headed?
how are you getting there? You're going to just start driving south and hopefully hit the right road. You might end up in Texas, who knows, right? But that's because we don't have a map. We don't have goals. We don't have, where are we going to stop and eat and where are we going to fill up the car and any of that kind of stuff, right? So it's super important for businesses, in my opinion, to have that, to know where you're going and at the same time, more importantly, why you're wanting to go there, right? Because without the why, businesses are like, what's the point?
We always say start with the end game, work backward. What are you trying to target in the first place? And then let's figure out how you're going to get there and how much effort and how much energy and how many resources it's going to take in what amount of time to achieve that. But if you don't actually know your destination, I mean, you're just driving to drive.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting for those that do just drive to drive. There are some entrepreneurs that drive to drive and succeed.
Yeah.
And they just keep,
I agree with that.
just keep going, right?
I agree with that.
One of our mentors, I guess now, I still to this day kind of laugh and I'm a bit confused because I asked him what he does for goals, what he does, does he set quarterly goals or annual goals, or is there an income goal, or like, what are you trying to do? And he goes, honestly, I just come into the shop every day. And if the trucks are out moving, I know I'm making money and that's it. And I'm like, but that's not a goal. And from a sales background, it's really interesting to hear the other perspective from a business owner side of things, which is, as a business owner, he knows that if the trucks are out, he's making money, things are good. When he shows up and they're parked, there's a problem. Right. But for a sales guy, like, it's not show up and like people are just waiting at your door for you to meet them.
That's right.
You have to go out there and find them, and how are you going to find them, and actually set a plan together, right? But it's still to this day just like, it kind of like breaks my brain how they're like, there's a guy, serial entrepreneur, five or six different businesses, and he just has like no real set goal. He knows kind of what he wants to do, but there's no like daily plan like a sales guy would do. How many people am I going to talk to today? What's the equation? What's the equation, right? How many people I got to talk to get a yes? How many yeses do I have to get to sell something? How many of those do I have to sell to meet my goal? In sales, that's just a process. That's
just what it is.
Right? But not in his business. And we had lunch and it's like my brain was broken.
But to be clear, there is a thing called luck. And I, ultimately at the end of the day, the majority of people cannot just say, my trucks are moving, things must be good. And then they are.
Right.
Sometimes, and to a degree, sure. But there's so many more metrics and so many more components that can layer into that can absolutely and unequivocally change the trajectory from pretty good to really freaking good.
Right.
And those aren't the same. So if we have somebody out there who kind of uses their gut, kind of goes with the flow, and for the most part things work out, they're freaking lucky. And luck is a thing. But for most entrepreneurs, if they're just using that as their pulse to determine good, bad, or otherwise, it's only going to work out for them if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they got to elevate their awareness and make some changes to exponentially grow.
Right.
Right? That's the key, right? Is good enough? Maybe. For some people, maybe.
Absolutely. And that's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs can get to, right? Was sometimes we set these goals of what it means to us, whether it's buying back our time, seeing our kids play sports, whatever the case may be. And then we're just comfortable because we hit the target.
Things are great.
Things are great. there is no other
Everybody's
target.
happy. Yeah,
And that happens a lot.
sure. It's very
Um,
easy to fall into complacency.
very easy, right?
Yeah,
It's comfortable.
sure.
You don't have to go out there and grind again, you know?
The thing is, as humans, I think we're built to be comfortable,
Yeah.
right? We're built to be attracted to that comfort. However, for some of us, that hill climber that's in
Yeah.
there just will nag and nag until it can be
Yeah,
fulfilled.
I have a hard time just like sitting around doing nothing.
Sure.
Whether it's, you know, going for a walk or working out or refereeing volleyball
Yeah.
or working on the business or making calls to clients or building plant. Like I feel like I always have to be doing something.
Sure.
Where my wife is very different. My
Sure.
wife loves having reset time.
Sure.
She loves having, you know, a weekend or a couple days to herself and just unwinding and not letting anything happen, bother, not being busy. And I'm like, when I'm sitting down doing nothing, I
No,
just get
thanks.
jittery. I gotta go.
But that's because her version of comfort and your version of comfort look different. But at the end of the
Right.
day, working out or, doing any of those things that you mentioned, that's your comfort.
Right.
It's not comfortable for you to hang out
Yeah.
or just sit around or chill or whatever. That's not comfortable for you.
Yeah.
But there's always a level, in my opinion, that we can choose to re-up on and that we can ultimately decide to elevate ourselves to,
Right.
So at the end of the day, I mean, even in your business, as you know, you've done lots of hard work in the last several years to build to a point where you are. If you're comfortable here, you can just be comfortable and still do all the things you just said and playing
Yeah.
sports and running and doing these things and going here and going there. But that still isn't necessarily leveling up to a new level. It's just your version of comfort,
Right.
right? So I think for each of us, we all need to reflect on that and really recognize within ourselves to say, hey, where are we at? We're all built differently, right? So we need to self-acknowledge, what's my level of comfort? What's my version of comfort? And how do I level up? What does that look like for me? How do I get to the next peak, right? You might reach a peak. There's always another peak.
Another one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, our time is coming to a bit of an end. So couple last questions. On that point, what is the next peak for you guys, for you and Dale, with Marda Management, for Huron, for
Yeah.
all the integrations, and obviously Growth Arena? What's the next peak for you guys?
So each of our businesses certainly have its own encompassing goals. We are absolutely going to be expanding Marda outside of the Windsor region. So that is a big goal for us in the next 24 to 36 months for sure.
Okay.
Each business, like I said, has kind of its own initiatives and its own things that it's doing. Growth Arena, absolutely, we're bringing to a whole nother level. I've been speaking on stages throughout North America in a number of different cities and facets. My personal coach, Dr. Greg Kimball, has been absolutely wonderful, opening doors for me and helping put me in a position to be able to share my story and my experience with the rest of the world. So that is something that is on the horizon that will only continue to exponentially grow in the next 12 months. And ultimately, we want to spend our time helping other business owners propel, help other business owners make sure that their launching pad is what and where it needs to be so that they can take off to their new peak.
Right. And I heard, if I heard correctly, there's a pretty big stage that you're talking on.
Yes.
With a guy named Tony.
Yes. So
coming up.
Yes, I have been invited through my coach, Dr. Greg Kimball, to speak on Tony Robbins' stage in Fiji. So we are very
awesome.
Excited about that. And
That's
that will
super
be rolling out in the
cool.
new year. Thank you.
Yeah, Tony Robbins his books are awesome. His Netflix documentary, docuseries or whatever is awesome.
So fascinating.
Super fascinating. He's just done so much personal development.
It's an honor.
Being able to speak on his stage is huge.
Very grateful. It's a wonderful
very, very
honor.
huge.
But honestly, the kudos really are due to my coach, Dr. Greg Kimball. Has been very wonderful to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so last and final question, and I didn't prep you for this because we don't prep any of them for this, to yourself, and maybe Dale, if you want to speak a little bit for him as well, but
Sure.
What does success mean to both Marla and Dale? This is the podcast talking about success. So what does it mean to you guys?
There is no question that I will speak absolutely for both of us, and I know I have Dale's full support in doing so, that success for us is about giving more than we receive. And at the end of the day, that can take so many different lives and formats and journeys. from helping people, through their business, through learning opportunities, through creating awareness, but ultimately also through philanthropy. It's really important to us to be able to give back to the community that's given so much to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge priority and what I would really use to help us define success.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's
Thank
a very unique one. Haven't heard that one yet. Well, that's it for today's episode of Cracking the Success Vault with Spectre Financial here. As always, you guys can find us, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, iTunes podcast, wherever you guys listen. Check us out. We are going to have more episodes coming. But Marla, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and chat with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.